We stand in the bathroom late at night staring at the mirror while the water runs, and we wonder when the shift actually happened. It is never a sudden, dramatic failure. It is a slow, quiet fade. We notice that the equipment does not respond with the immediate urgency it used to. We notice that the pressure drops faster, that the physical presence requires more mental focus to maintain, and that the morning predictability we took for granted for 40 years has completely vanished. And instead of looking objectively at the daily choices we are making, we just wash our face, turn off the light, and tell ourselves that this is simply what getting older feels like. I spent the entire decade of my 50s actively sabotaging my own infrastructure without even realizing I was doing it. I was closing heavy sales contracts, living out of airport lounges between Austin and Chicago, and operating under the absolute delusion that my body was an infinite resource. I believed that because I was successful in my career, the rules of physical maintenance simply did not apply to me. When the physical hesitation started showing up in the bedroom, I panicked. I looked for the quick fixes, the supplements, the easy patches. I completely ignored the fact that my daily routine was systematically dismantling my own vascular network. There are things we do every single day, behaviors we carry over from our bulletproof 30s that absolutely ruin our ability to perform when we cross the 50-year mark. I look back now at 63, and the regret is incredibly heavy. Not because my body changed, but because I punished it for so long with routines I was too stubborn to let go of. The first thing I deeply regret is how I treated the end of my day. I used to pride myself on running on pure adrenaline until midnight. In the corporate world, needing very little sleep is worn like a badge of honor. I would lie in bed answering emails, my mind racing with quarterly projections and contract negotiations, and then I would just expect my body to immediately power down and rebuild itself in 5 hours. I did not understand that a physical response, especially that morning reliability, is essentially a byproduct of deep, uninterrupted recovery. When you keep your nervous system locked in a state of high alert until the minute you close your eyes, the body never gets the biological signal to perform the vascular repair work overnight. I was literally suffocating my own capacity to perform the next day because I refused to learn how to turn the engine off. I had to learn to shut down the house, drop the temperature in the room, and aggressively protect my downtime. Then there was the way I started my mornings. For decades, the very first thing I did when my feet hit the floor was pour a massive cup of dark roast coffee. I almost never drank plain water. I would wake up inherently dehydrated from the night, and I would immediately pour a diuretic into a completely depleted system. Staying hard is not a matter of pure willpower. It is a matter of fluid dynamics. It requires high blood volume to fill the pipes and maintain the structural pressure. I was asking a complex hydraulic pump to work flawlessly while giving it absolutely no fluid to operate with. It is embarrassing to think about now, but I was literally drying out my own blood vessels before the sun even came up. Now, before I check a single screen or brew a single drop of coffee, I flood the system with water. I treat hydration not as a wellness trend, but as a mandatory supply chain requirement. And the fuel I was putting into the tank at night was just as destructive. I carried this terrible habit from my corporate travel days of eating massive, heavy dinners late in the evening. A large steak, potatoes, and usually a scotch to take the edge off the stress of the day. I thought I was rewarding myself for working hard. But in reality, I was forcing my internal organs to spend the entire night processing heavy sludge. Instead of using that vital downtime to clear the blood vessels and produce the chemical signals needed for vascular expansion, my body was trapped in a massive digestive battle at 3 in the morning. You cannot run high-performance equipment on dirty, heavy fuel and expect the valves to open cleanly when you need them to. I had to completely strip out those late meals and start eating to keep the lines clear, rather than eating to comfort my stress. I also had to face the uncomfortable reality of my own physical stagnation. I considered myself a hard-working man because I put in 12-hour days at a desk or in a boardroom. But from a mechanical standpoint, I was doing absolutely nothing. I was not forcing my heart to pump. I was not demanding that my blood vessels expand and contract. I thought that if I was not actively trying to look like a fitness model on a magazine cover, I did not really need to move. I realize now that daily movement is not about vanity. It is mandatory vascular maintenance. I live in Scottsdale now, and I had to start walking every single morning in the heat, pushing the pace, forcing the lungs to demand oxygen. I had to remind my infrastructure how to handle high volume and high pressure. By sitting still for 10 hours a day in an office chair, I was essentially teaching my blood vessels how to stay narrow, rigid, and unresponsive. But the heaviest regret, the habit that did infinitely more damage than the lack of sleep or the terrible diet, was the silence. The absolute stubborn refusal to talk about what was happening to me. When the equipment started failing, my pride completely took over the wheel. Instead of looking my partner in the eye and admitting that my body was changing and I was struggling to figure it out, I created a massive wall of distance. I would pick a fight over something completely irrelevant just to ruin the mood, ensuring we would not go to the bedroom. I would stay up late watching television until I knew for a fact she was asleep. I protected my ego, but I let the woman I loved believe she was the reason I was pulling away. That silence is an emergency brake on the nervous system. When you are terrified of failing and you are spending all your energy trying to hide that terror, your body is flooded with stress signals. And the very first thing the human body does under extreme stress is pull blood flow away from the extremities to protect the vital organs. By refusing to be honest, I was chemically guaranteeing that I would fail when the moment arrived. My wife Alyssa is the one who finally broke that cycle. She is an incredibly direct woman, and she did not let me hide behind my excuses anymore. She forced the conversation I was too much of a coward to initiate. She sat me down and asked what was really going on. The moment I finally admitted that I was trapped in my own head, terrified of letting her down, terrified of losing my core identity as a man, the pressure valve simply released. The performance anxiety evaporated because there was nothing left to hide. She did not judge me. She just listened. And because the fear of failure was finally removed from the room, my nervous system felt safe enough to actually relax. You cannot carry the arrogant habits of your 30s into your late 50s and expect the machinery to survive. You have to rebuild the routine from the ground up. You have to shut down the adrenaline at night. You have to flood the system with fluid before you do anything else. You have to stop punishing your digestion when you should be resting. You have to force the blood to pump every single day. And above all else, you absolutely must stop carrying the shame in silence. Rebuilding this infrastructure is not a weekend project. It takes a quiet, unglamorous dedication to doing the right things consistently long after the initial motivation fades. But when you finally strip away the habits that are destroying the network, you will find that the body is remarkably forgiving. The morning predictability starts to return. The physical presence holds longer. You stop avoiding the connection you actually crave. If you are past 50, stop making the excuses I made. Let go of the habits that are quietly breaking you down. The engine still has plenty of miles left if you are finally willing to treat it with the respect it requires. We will keep figuring this out together. I will talk to you soon.